is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my good friend from Florida, Mr. Webster, for yielding the customary time. As he has said, the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2012 provides $144 billion in appropriations for veterans programs, military construction projects, and other agencies and programs. This bipartisan effort, and Mr. Webster underscored that, and I echo his sentiments in that regard, brought Democrats and Republicans together to craft legislation that provides the necessary funds for important military construction projects, as well as improves the quality of life for veterans and military families. One of our colleagues who no longer serves here would be very proud of this measure. He and Mr. Dix and others worked together for years. But I know Ike Skelton spent the greater portion of his career working to improve the quality of life for veterans and military families. So I pay homage to him that I have the privilege of presenting this measure on the floor. It increases overall funding for veterans' health and benefits programs, ensuring that servicemen and women who have dedicated themselves to our country will continue to receive the benefits they deserve. This legislation provides $14 billion in military construction for a wide range of new, upgraded, and improved housing projects for members of the military and their families. This funding also includes important upgrades for military medical facilities and Defense Department education facilities located both here at home and on bases around the world. The Department of Veterans Affairs has provided a total of $128 billion in budget authority, an increase of almost $9 billion over last year. This legislation ensures full funding for essential VA compensation and benefits programs in areas like education, vocational training, and housing assistance. It also includes $52 billion in advance funding for the VA, ensuring that veterans will continue to have full access to their medical care needs, regardless of where Congress stands in the annual appropriations process. This underlying legislation includes funding for important national programs and activities such as Arlington National Cemetery, the American Battle Monuments Commission, the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, and the Armed Forces Retirement Home. However, Mr. Speaker, I'm a little disappointed to see that the majority included an unfortunately political and possibly divisive amendment regarding project labor agreements. In February '09, President Obama issued an executive order to allow federal agencies to consider requiring the use of project labor agreements in connection with large-scale construction projects. The executive order did not mandate the use of these agreements. In fact, the order explicitly states that federal officials have the option to determine if these agreements are right for a project. Unfortunately, the committee adopted an amendment to the underlying legislation that prohibits funds from being used to implement this order, effectively blocking agencies from even considering such labor agreements. These labor agreements are useful to promote the economy and efficiency in federal procurement practices. A project labor agreement is a pre-hire agreement that establishes the terms and conditions of employment for a specific construction project, and it can be a useful tool to ensure coordination on large-scale projects involving multiple employers. The executive order still allows for competition in contracts and subcontracts, contains guarantees against strikes and similar job disruptions, and provides mechanisms for management and labor cooperation. But while the executive order does not mandate the use of project labor agreements, the language adopted by the committee rules out that possibility altogether. The executive order ensures that construction projects are built correctly the first time, on time, and as a result, on budget. Frankly, this is an inappropriate and unnecessary politicization of this appropriations bill, and I believe in the end will simply add cost to the taxpayer through a less efficient procurement process. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out that I'm also troubled by the provision regarding Guantanamo Bay detainees. Indeed, all of the appropriations bills are going to include provisions to prohibit funds to renovate, expand, or construct facilities in the United States in order to house Guantanamo Bay detainees. Let me say the same thing I said during last year's appropriation cycle when similar language was included. The language in this bill is not going to solve the problem of what to do with the indefinite detention of individuals at Guantanamo Bay. The debate over Guantanamo is missing the larger picture, and that is the need to reform our entire detainment policy. As I have maintained, the problem is the policy, not the place. Without a system of justice to deal with suspected terrorists wherever they are held, we are left with a broken system that has been a significant recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda and other groups which threaten our security. We need to deny them that image of America. We need a judicial process that accomplishes three things. One, protects our national security by holding and prosecuting those who have committed crimes or pose a threat to our country. Two, upholds international standards of human rights. And three, strengthens our nation's image as a country that upholds the rule of law and does not resort to arbitrary justice even while under threat. The underlying legislation is the second appropriations bill this cycle to contain provisions relating to Guantanamo. I expect that the remaining bills also will include this language. At some point soon, we're going to need to move beyond trying to legislate this matter into appropriations bills and instead deal with establishing new and appropriate policies and guidelines to bring our national security needs in line with our historic national values. Mr. Speaker, the underlying legislation contains essential funding for critical military construction programs and for our nation's veterans. It is fitting that we consider this legislation so soon after Memorial Day, when the sacrifices made by so many servicemen and women are still on our minds. Veterans deserve our thanks and our admiration, and we owe them the necessary resources to meet their health care, education, and housing needs. I reserve the balance of my time.